It's time for Criminal Law 101.
With criminal defense attorney Ken Eulo from the law firm of Smith & Eulo.
On 101.1 WJRR.
We are Orlando's rock station. Ken's out this week. We got Matt Futch in instead. We had you on once before, a couple months back. Love having you in again. Welcome, brother.
Me, guys.
Yeah, man. Pull that mic a little closer to you there. There you go. Good to go. Glad to have you in here this morning, Matt. Everything going all right?
Everything's good. Nice, chill weather, but thankfully we don't have all that snow that they've got going on.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, it's quite a doozy up there in the Northeast today. Going to be a fun travel day around the country. But
check your flights ahead, like we say all the time, but especially today.
Good to be here in Florida. So we've had some questions come in, criminal law-related questions. We'll get those in front of you. We've got want to get your perspective on some stories that are in the news and another incident of last night. Taco, where do you want to start this morning?
By the way, if you ever need to get in touch with Ken or Matt, you can check the website, smithandeulo.com, SMITHAND. Spell out the word and, EULO.com.
And remember, it's criminal law that they practice there, okay?
Yeah. Good morning, gentlemen. Have a criminal law question. How does the county jail point system work, and how does it affect a conviction of time?
I'm assuming they're referring to maybe like a score sheet or something like that. There's no real point system.
That's
I've never heard of such a thing.
Because I never heard of it either.
Yeah, when you're charged with a felony, there's something called a score sheet, and the legislature kind of creates a formula. Crimes are worth certain points. The more points, you might score prison time. So maybe that's what they're referring to, but. There is something also called gain time, right?
How does that work, by the way?
Yeah, so it's one of those things where for good behavior, right? Staying out of trouble, not getting written up, not committing new crimes while in custody. You for every 30 days, you can earn 5 days of gain time for good behavior. So you can take off about 5 days a month for good behavior.
Is that a standard practice across?
Yeah, it's actually built into the statute for prison as well. They calculate it on their own, but that's where the whole 85% things comes from. So in prison, if you're sentenced to the Florida Department of Corrections with good behavior, you can be released after 85% of your sentence being served, which is what they refer to as gain time.
What happens if you're an otherwise, role model prisoner or detainee or guest, however you want to phrase doing your time, and, you mind your own business, you keep your nose clean, but perhaps you find yourself getting in a situation where you have to defend yourself, and then now you're inadvertently getting in additional trouble. Do they take that into consideration?
They do. They should, right? But it's like I don't know what you even want to call it, but it's just like an internal review board within the Department of Corrections, right, that determines what gain time you get, whether you're eligible or not. Certain crimes you don't qualify, right? 10-20 life, day for day. So there's no gain time for charges like that. But if you're otherwise, that's something that you would imagine, and I would expect that they would take into account to make sure that, you're not unfairly losing gain time for something out of your control.
And a lot of times it seems like the person that's coming at you is probably a troublemaker and probably does not have the good behavior going, as do you. This one's pretty heavy. Yesterday, someone put a bin with a dead dog on my front porch and then called the police. The officer came out, talked with my wife and I. She ultimately left after finding that it was not our dog. Neighbor has a camera, but will not provide the footage of who put it there. Is there any legal avenue that I can take to find out who did this?
Forcing somebody to turn over surveillance footage is a tough thing, because the only way that's going to happen is with a court order or a subpoena or something like that, and that's got to come from the courts or law enforcement, right?
And that's going to be tough to pull off anyway.
That's going to be tough. Now, if law enforcement is investigating a crime, they can use their power to seek a warrant from a judge or something like that, but that's going to require them to take this specific case obviously seriously and then pursue it, because law enforcement does have the ability to go to a judge, to have a judge force somebody to turn over surveillance footage.
On that note, look no further than the Guthrie case and how much the law enforcement has had to literally plea with people in that general area. Could you please go through your footage there, and if you see anything, could you bring it to our attention, volunteer it, and not always people willing to do that.
Correct. Yeah. And then a lot of times people have those up and they don't even work.
Right.
Yeah,
They're
true.
just dummy cams or they just broke.
Yeah.
This one, Pat, listen to this one. Good morning. Question for the attorney. My kid gets her learner's permit soon. Let's say I'm doing some yard work and knock a few cold ones back. Then we decide to go pick something up for dinner. What kind of charge could I get if she's driving and I'm in the passenger seat? I think I know the answer to this one.
That is a unique, tough question. So I'd tell you that I wouldn't do that. Right?
Hell no.
Because, for a variety of reasons. But legally speaking, when someone has a learner's permit, they have to be with an authorized driver. And as that authorized driver, the last thing you want is law enforcement pulling you over and finding out that you're under the influence or impaired. So,
and as that licensed lawful driver, you have to adhere to the same regulations as if you were actually driving, right?
Yes.
That's what I heard, yeah.
Yeah, and while I would be surprised if you actually got charged with a DUI or something like that, that is a can of worms you just don't want to open or play with.
Just have the food delivered, man.
Yeah.
Have the food delivered.
It's amazing. When I saw that question come through, it came through last week, and I thought, oof, man, everybody's, maybe been in that situation. What I always heard, do not, because as you said, Pat, you're the legal driver for a reason that you may have to jump in and drive. Yeah. If that kid freaks out or whatever, and you have to pull over, and then done.
Hey, couple of different incidents here in the last few days at Walmart stores here locally. One last night on East Colonial Drive. Both involved shoplifters. Shoplifters fleeing from store loss prevention and then actual police getting involved, both ending with police discharging their weapons at shoplifters. Now, the guy on Thursday of last week was identified ultimately as a 16-year-old who was armed and running through the store with a gun, which probably explains why the officer, took action there.
Sure.
Then we've got the one from last night out on East Colonial, which is a little bit different situation. The suspect was shot but not killed.
Yeah, what was the story with that? Because I didn't know about it until you mentioned this morning. He had a shopping cart full of stuff.
Full of stuff. They caught up with him. He wasn't following their commands. He ended up getting tased. It had no effect on him whatsoever. They said, "Don't reach, don't." And he reached, and they shot him to incapacitate him, and he was taken to the hospital. Law enforcement, when they are in that position and discharge their weapon, that's a serious decision to have to make. As a criminal defense attorney, your perspective on that, because I know it comes up in case after case after case.
It does. The standard for law enforcement is actually the same standard for you or I, right? If we would like or need to use deadly force to protect ourselves, it's to prevent the imminent death or great bodily harm, right, that you think is imminent and is going to happen to you. In the first case, and these things don't happen in a vacuum, right? So, it's easy for us to Monday morning quarterback and say, oh, why didn't they do this? Why didn't do that? We have to remember, and I'm not defending anybody here. These facts are kind of rolling in, and we only get what we see in the news.
Right.
But we have to remember that these are split-second decisions, right? When a firearm is present and somebody's running, you have to assume that the officer is thinking, imminent harm or danger may come to somebody else, right, or myself. But these are reviewed by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, every officer involved shooting. They've been doing that for a long time. But the standard is the same. It is the same. Imminent death or great bodily harm. And with the shopping cart case, right, telling somebody, hey, don't reach, officers sitting there in a split second saying, is there a firearm? Is there a knife?
You don't know.
A weapon? And they don't know. Now, I know it's alleged that there were a couple of knives recovered from scene, but after tasing somebody, right, that didn't work. You tell them, listen, comply, and they don't. It's a tough situation. So you don't ever want to see anybody get shot, ever. Yeah. But, you got to also think from the civilian's perspective. These shoppers minding their own business and somebody's running through a Walmart fleeing from the police, allegedly, right?
Yeah.
With a firearm. swinging around, that's a concerning situation for everybody.
I say it just like the guy in that gator shooting show. Shoot him! Shoot him! You tell somebody, do not reach, and then they reach into the cart. I'm sorry.
Ken, when he's here, he stresses too. He's like, when he goes, common sense goes a long way when you are having an interaction with law enforcement. Follow the instruction, comply with the instruction, and 9 times out of 10, everything's fine.
Yes, and you can always, there's a saying, you can beat the charge, but you can't beat the ride, right?
Right.
And nobody wants to get arrested, especially if you didn't do anything wrong and you're innocent.
Right.
But at the end of the day, if you listen and comply, you can deal with civil rights violations and criminal suppression issues after the fact.
Yeah.
You can't undo a shooting, right? So pulling a firearm or not complying, it's just no matter what you did or didn't do, just comply.
Just comply with the officers.
Hire an attorney, and sort through it
afterwards, right? And have your life still, enjoy.
Let the people that are trained and have the schooling take care of it for you.
Yes, sir.
All right. If we didn't get to your question this week, we will hang on to it for next go around. Or if you want to send it, you can always send these over. We do this segment every Monday here.
You can either email them to me directly, tacobob@wjrr.com, or just text them 22526. If you want to get in touch with Ken or Matt, it's smithandeulo.com, EULO.com. And yes, you spell out the word and.
Now, we hope none of you ever have to use the services of a criminal defense attorney, but if you do,
go with the best.
They're a good firm, and they'll take good care of you. And criminal defense runs a wide description. It can be something from a criminal traffic case to first-degree murder, which you've been involved in those cases yourself.
Yes, sir. Traffic to murder, injunctions. We handle a lot of stuff.
All right, man. Thank you so much for coming in on the short notice.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Always great to see you.
And I think we're going to see you again in a few weeks.
That's very possible.
All right.
I like it.
All right. That is your Criminal Law 101 for this week. Lunch and Tacos, commercial-free Workday Rock Block coming up after the break. Stand by.
Looking at morning.